You're watching PNN, the Parody News Network.
Hello and welcome to PNN. I'm Montana Smith. We have breaking news at the top of the hour. The Holy Grail has been recovered. This, of course, stunning news for both the religious world and the archaeological one. We have details pouring in as we speak. We're going to go live to our correspondent on the scene, Nevada Brown. Nevada, what are you hearing?
Well, Montana, I'm in front of the temple here at the Canyon of the Crescent Moon. Moments ago, we're told, Dr. Henry Jones Jr., a professor of archaeology, has just recovered the Holy Grail, the chalice used by Christ at the Last Supper, and the cup that caught his blood at the crucifixion, which was entrusted to Joseph of Arimathea. Now, details are sketchy as to why Dr. Jones felt the need to possess this particular artifact, but sources suggest that it may be because of his father, a teacher of medieval literature, and the one described as, quote, the one the students hope they don't get. Now, it is worth noting that many of the eyewitnesses here are missing their heads, so quotes are hard to come by, but we will keep bringing you information as it's available. Montana?
Okay, thank you, Nevada. Compelling stuff. We're going to go now to our chief global correspondent, Mississippi Davis. Mississippi, can you give us an idea of just how Dr. Jones came to be in this particular temple?
Well, Montana, here's what we know at this hour. The journey apparently began at Marshall College in Bedford, Connecticut, where Jones is a professor. We're told Dr. Jones and his companion Marcus Brody traveled to Venice, where they were joined by a Dr. Schneider, then to Castle Grunwald on the Austro-German border. From there, it was on to Berlin, where, shockingly, Jones was seen in the company of none other than Adolf Hitler. Still sorting out the details on that. The father and son then left Germany on a Zeppelin, which we're told they were ejected from for not having tickets. They then made their way to Hatay, starting in Iskenderun, which, as we all know, is built on the remains of the ancient city of Alexandretta, finally arriving at the Temple of the Sun in the Canyon of the Crescent Moon. Montana?
Okay, quite a bit of travel to get us to this point. Thank you, Mississippi. Please stand by as we go now to our historical correspondent, South Carolina Hernandez. South Carolina, can you give us any idea of what might have been involved in Dr. Jones actually taking possession of the Grail? I mean, surely it was protected in some way, was it not?
It absolutely was, Montana. And while we don't know exactly how Dr. Jones thwarted these devices of lethal cunning, we do know what they were. The first was the breath of God, where only the penitent man could proceed. This involved falling to one's knees to avoid a very sharp blade. The second was the word of God, where only in the footsteps of God would he proceed. This involved spelling out Jehovah on stone tiles and then carefully stepping on each letter or plummeting to one's death. We can only assume that Dr. Jones remembered that in Latin, Jehovah is spelled with an I. And then finally the path of God, where only in a leap from the lion's head would one prove his worth. This ended up being a cleverly disguised footbridge that led to the Grail chamber itself. Montana?
Wow, scary stuff. Okay, South Carolina, stand by as we turn to our resident theologian, Dr. Pennsylvania Harris. Dr. Harris, what do you imagine Dr. Jones found upon entering the Grail chamber?
Well, Montana, I would guess two things. One, I have no doubt that he encountered the last remaining knight who was left behind to guard the Grail.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Doctor, but wasn't that approximately 700 years ago?
Long time to wait. Now, assuming he defeated the knight, my guess is that Dr. Jones would have had to choose from among a number of false grails to prove himself worthy of possessing the true one. Hopefully he knew enough to choose the cup of a carpenter.
My apologies for interrupting again, Dr. Harris, but we've just learned that a new image has been posted to Dr. Jones's Instagram account. We can see it here, of what appears to be a number of chalices with the caption, "Found it." Hashtag Trail to the Grail, hashtag Join the Scouts. It would appear that this was the moment Dr. Jones discovered the Grail. Dr. Harris, your thoughts?
Well, it's important to remember that finding what you believe to be the Grail is only the first step. In order to verify its authenticity, Dr. Jones would have had to have drunk from it. That being the case, we can only hope that he chose wisely, because when you drink from a false Grail, it's not a pretty sight.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor. I'm just getting word that there is a major development in this story. We're going to go right back to Nevada Brown in the Canyon of the Crescent Moon. Nevada, what's the latest?
Well, Montana, Dr. Jones, who you may recall we just reported had recovered the Holy Grail, has apparently lost it. Now, there is some confusion on how precisely this happened, but we do have a tweet from Dr. Jones's official Twitter account that reads, "See, this is why I have trust issues. Hashtag Grail fail. Hashtag we'll always have Venice. Hashtag next time send the Marx brothers." While it's unclear what all of this means, preliminary reports suggest that someone, whether it be Dr. Jones or one of his associates, carried the Grail across the Great Seal on the floor of the temple chamber, and as we all know, being the price of immortality, you are forbidden to do this. Now, whether the Grail has been returned to its original resting place or has been swallowed up by the earth for all eternity, we do not know at this hour. We can only hope that Dr. Jones can find a way to let it go. Montana?
Thank you, Nevada. And one quick follow-up for you. Now that this adventure seems to be complete, how do Dr. Jones and his companions plan to make their way back to civilization from such a remote location?
Well, Montana, both Dr. Henry Jones Jr. and Dr. Henry Jones Sr. are well-traveled explorers, and their companion Sala knows this region like the back of his hand. We can only hope, however, that they don't follow fellow Marcus Brody home, as he once got lost in his own museum. Montana?
Okay, thank you very much, Nevada. I'm lost in his own museum. We'll have all the latest developments in this story as the hour progresses, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You've been watching PNN, the Parody News Network.